Well, joining us to talk a little bit about the speeches and about what strategy might be ahead is Michael Prell. Michael served as a strategist for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and he joins us now. Michael, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, from the start of this Obama administration up to the speech last week, did that speech catch you by surprise, or did it validify your thoughts of President Obama not being the friendliest toward Israel?
It did not catch me by surprise. The night before, I was speaking in California, and they asked me, they said, Michael, what do you expect the president to say tomorrow, which was last Thursday? And I said, I expect the worst thing imaginable, and he did not disappoint. He said something that no president has ever said before, and this is not some academic discussion. This is not something in the faculty lounge that we can just throw words around. We're talking about the survival of America's only ally in the Middle East, which the president put in jeopardy with his words and with his position. He knows exactly what he did. He tried to pedal it back a little bit at AIPAC on the weekend, but you can't unexplode that bomb. We saw his heart on Thursday, and it's not good for the state of Israel.
What part of him saying that any solution has to recognize Israel's right to exist and protect Israel's right to protect itself? What part of that is making it dangerous for Israel?
Those two sentences are good. Here's what was not good in what he said. 1967 borders are not only indefensible, it's also not something for America to say. You can't go into another country and say, you must do this. It's just like the United Nations coming to America and say, you must give back Manhattan Island. It's completely illegitimate, and plus, it's suicide. Those 1967 lines that the president called for are what Abba Eban, who was Israel's late foreign minister, used to call the Auschwitz lines. You can't go back to these lines. It is literally calling for the destruction of Israel. There's no other way.
Amazing. And, of course, in saying that, he had to realize that Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israelis were not going to be in favor of such an incident, and then he was taken, I guess you could say, to the woodshed by Prime Minister Netanyahu, and our American press, the mainstream press, chastised him for being so harsh to the president. What do you think of that?
A lot of people are saying, Netanyahu was being harsh. Well, let me just show you what harsh is. Harsh is when your only ally in the Middle East is about to get on a plane. You've invited him to your home, okay? If nobody here understands anything about the Middle East, understand this. When you invite someone to your home, you don't ambush them while they're in the air on the way to your home so that for 12 hours they can't respond. That is completely disrespectful. And this is not, like I said, some country club academic, high school discussion. This is not a debate. This is a real threat to the state of Israel. And when the president went and spoke on Thursday, here's what happened just 4 days before. This is the context in which he spoke. Last Sunday was Israel. It was the anniversary of Israel's founding. Now, the Palestinians call that the Nakba, which means the catastrophe. And just 4 days before the president's speech, Israel was physically attacked on 4 sides. Now, that's like Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island attacking New York on the 4th of July and calling the founding of America a catastrophe and saying they're going to drive all the New Yorkers into the Hudson River to drown. You can't negotiate with these people. The president knows that, and when he wants them and forces them and says you must negotiate with these people, he knows what he's saying, and what he's saying is not right.
So in your belief, there is no end to this if the Palestinians are part of the solution, that the talk of a Palestinian state and the talk of solving these Middle East problems cannot happen if the Palestinians aren't part of the discussion?
By definition, the Palestinians must be a part of the discussion. That's what Prime Minister Netanyahu says. But here's what's changed in the past few weeks. There's always been this guise, this illusion that there's the good Palestinian group that we can deal with, that's the PA, but then over here there's the bad group, which is Hamas, and they're an internationally recognized terrorist group. In fact, it's illegal for anyone in America to even deal with Hamas, because they are actually a recognized terrorist group. Well, about 3 weeks ago, the two groups joined together. So now, by asking Netanyahu to negotiate with this, quote, negotiating partner, President Obama is actually asking him to break the law, and this is something that President Obama can't even do. And in fact, right now, all of you listening right now in the listening audience, $550 million of your tax dollars every year that you actually can't afford are being sent now to a coalition government with Hamas, which is a recognized recognized terrorist group, which is actually illegal. It's illegal to send money to a terrorist group. So President Obama, why are you sending money to a terrorist group and demanding that Netanyahu negotiate with a terrorist group?
I imagine, too, that that's something that, did President Bush also send money to Hamas?
Nope. We send money to the PA. The PA is now officially joined with a terrorist group, and that's what's different. Here's the other thing. President
Bush called for a free and open election there, and unfortunately, Hamas won that election. So they are the recognized leader of that group of Palestinians.
Well, they still are a terrorist group.
Well,
Tom.
I understand that, but I mean, sometimes we get elections that we don't like, but we have to deal with the situation as it is.
Right, and we always have the choice at any time to not make deals with recognized terrorist groups. I mean, it seems like it makes sense to us over here, but when you're there, you actually can't make a deal with people who are sworn to destroy you. Let me just tell you, President Obama himself would not make a deal with these people because President Obama just 2-3 weeks ago was so proud of killing Osama bin Laden. Well, Hamas took to the streets and protested and called Osama bin Laden a martyr and a great hero. If we won't negotiate with these people, why are we trying to force our only ally in the Middle East to negotiate with these people?
Let me ask you this. Do you see it, because we've had people on the show that have suggested that the only way this ends is that Israel has to attack, whether it's Iran, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Syria, that Israel should attack to protect their borders and their interests. Do you see that as the end game here, or what do you see as an end game to solve these situations?
Right now we're getting into my opinion, and that's not as important as the opinion of Benjamin Netanyahu. He'll speak this morning to a joint session of Congress, and if anybody wants to hear a great man speaking with great moral clarity, he's going to lay out exactly his options. I have my opinions, and they matter, and I speak with his people, but when it comes down to it, he's a strong leader, and he's going to make his opinions strongly heard to a joint session of Congress in a speech that I believe will be historic.
Well, let me ask you this then, Michael. We're talking with Michael Prell, who served as a strategist for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What do you think will be the theme of his address? What will he set forward, in your opinion, without maybe knowing and hearing him already?
What Prime Minister Netanyahu is brilliant at is drawing clear moral distinctions. And a lot of us get sucked up into these abstract academic discussions of who should do what, et cetera, et cetera. He lives on the front line. I've been on the front line with him. It is not an academic discussion over there. It is literally life and death. And he's going to lay out clearly the stakes, and he's going to lay out clearly the moral distinctions between the two groups. There is actually a difference between the way Israelis treat their neighbors and the way Israel's neighbors want to treat Israel. And it's important to not live under an illusion and say that we're all the same. Well, no, there is a difference. Israel is America's only ally in the Middle East. They are good. We should treat them as such, and we should understand that you can't negotiate with people whose opening position is that you must be wiped from the face of the earth.
Yeah, we don't hear that in America enough. In fact, there's a lot that say that Israel is the problem over there.
The president has made it very clear, though, that any discussion starts with Israel's right to exist and Israel's right to protect its borders.
Israel can exist all it wants, but if Israel is pushed back by its own big ally, the United States, to indefensible borders, those words mean nothing because they are completely indefensible.
Benjamin Netanyahu's political fortunes have rose and fell over the years. What's the temperature of his political fortune in Israel at this point in time?
What people over here don't quite understand is that it's a rather robust political milieu over there. I hate to use those fancy words, but we're talking coalition governments. They have a left wing that's even farther left than our left wing. So, their left wing, which is the people that we defeated in the last election, they're calling for Netanyahu to resign. There's people to Netanyahu's right saying you need to get tougher. And it's a different form of government. You actually have to form government with the people you ran against. So imagine Let's say Sarah Palin wins the next election, and having to form an election and form a government and run every decision by Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid every day. It's a strange system, so there's no shortage of criticism from all sides. But what has solidified completely, because again, for them, it's not an academic discussion, Netanyahu is a man who's standing up for the safety of Israel, and that is the primary function of any leader. And he is going up, up, up in people's estimation because he is a strong leader. He is the right man at the right time.
There's an opinion op-ed written in today's Wall Street Journal by Brett Stevens. I don't know if you had a chance to read that yet, but he calls an anti-Israeli president. The president's peace proposal is a formula for war. Do you think we're at better odds for war with this agreement than we were without it?
The good news is that there's no agreement. This
Okay.
was words suggested wrongly by President Obama on Thursday, from which he backpedaled, and which nobody actually expects there to be any action. The bad news is that he pulled off the mask and revealed exactly what I knew and what a lot of people knew about his thoughts about Israel. And I would take exception to one thing that Brett Stevens says. I don't think that the President of the United States is anti-Israel. And we're not here to talk about my book, but go back and look at it. It's this gut reaction under dogma to take the side of the little guy and to raise a fist against the powerful that just permeates academia and the world that President Obama grew up in. I don't believe that people who are anti-Israel are anti-Jew, and that's a key distinction to make. It's about power haves and power have-nots and how people make their allegiances based on that axis.
What would happen, in your opinion, if, let's say, Israel is removed from the Mideast? You know, a lot of people over here thinking, why is it... what would happen to the stability of the world and to that part of the country, let alone, of course, the terrible displacement of all the Jewish people, but what would happen to the world in your opinion?
That is not a outcome that I'm willing to even consider. And also the American people are not willing to consider that. President Obama didn't just reawaken this, strong Jewish support in America against what he said. About 78% of Americans are strongly pro-Israel. These are non-Jews. So he awoke a giant last week. This will not happen. We will not betray Israel. And he just reignited more support for Israel in America by saying those words. We will not see a world without an Israel because American and the American people will not allow it.
But what's so funny, too, Michael, is that when it come election time, all the Democratic Jewish people vote for him, even though he's not the most supportive president.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because, as you know, I travel the world and I help conservatives win in different countries, in Israel, Australia. Well, I was just in Canada where I helped them win a majority conservative for the first time in a long time. And one thing that happened there that we did that has never happened anywhere else is we fundamentally, and for a generation, shifted the Jewish vote from left to right. And that has never happened before, and we're looking to do that in the States, too.
Very good. Well, for the folks listening here, give us, again, the name of your latest book and the website. They can be, I know Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but your own website or blog as well.
Sure thing. It's under, UNDER, -dogma.com, or just Google the word Under Dogma. You can download a big piece of the book for free on the website. And the book actually begins with a story about Benjamin Netanyahu.
Very good. Well, Michael, it has been great talking with you. I hope to catch up with you again in the future.
Great. Thank you both.
Thank you. Bye-bye. WSAU, it is 8:25 news, and then scheduled to talk with Congressman Sean Duffy.
Today's episode of Stop Thief is brought to you by IRO, Shredding, Recycling, and Waste Services.